Hi everyone, it's Eliana and I have a couple of cards to share with you today. Both were made with the same stamps but just on different paper. One is on Papertrey Ink True Black cardstock and the other one is on the thick Stamping Up Whisper White cardstock. The colors I'll be using are from Papertrey Ink and Momento. They are Pure Poppy, Harvest Gold, Summer Sunrise, New Leaf, and in the Momento, they are the Danube Blue and the Elderberry. And I'm starting in rainbow order, and I'll just stamp portions of the stamp and then kind of blend the colors together. So I started with the Pure Poppy, and then I used my distressed blender. I forget what those things are called. The little distress blending tool. And I soften up the edges because the cubes leave like a distinct line on your stamp. And then I just kind of try to blend them together and then add the next color. If you don't do that step, you get the lines across your stamp. So I wanted to go in rainbow order, and I thought that if I used the Harvest Gold, that it would create an orange, but it really didn't, and so I went back and I used the Summer Sunrise and then added a little bit more of yellow later on. And in between colors, I am using my absorber cloth to wipe off some colors so that I don't go back and contaminate in other areas. I don't think you really need to do that since you're using this, you're stamping over the same spot, but it just kind of helped me a little bit better to see where I needed to blend the colors. One of the responses that I usually get a lot from people that don't have a MISTI is that they don't make duplicates of the cards, so they don't need this kind of a tool. And this is a perfect example of owning a tool and having a different purpose for it. I always make duplicates of cards because I have so many people to give cards to, and I always like to hold on to one. And I know that's probably not a great idea, but it just gives me a reference point. Like if I get in a jam and I need to make a card, I can go back and reference one of those cards, or I could just give one of those cards again. And so I like to have multiples of cards, but I digress. The MISTI tool has so many techniques that you could use, and this is just one of them where you can just keep blending colors together and just create unique backgrounds that wouldn't be possible without the tool. I think you can try to do a similar technique without the MISTI, but I don't believe it would come out as crisp as this right here. I'm going to add the last color, which is the Elderberry in the Momento, and I just want to make sure that it's going to work okay. It's the shade that I want, and so I'm just testing it out at the very top of the paper, and I'm just stamping the very bottom and blending it again with the blending tool. After I stamped this, I should have stopped there, but I wanted a little bit more of that purple color to come up, and so I end up adding a little bit more, and I really wasn't too pleased with it, but I wasn't going to start over just to fix that again. And so you can kind of see where the dark, it creates a dark blue. So like I said, I wasn't too pleased with it, but it's still okay, and so I still continued to make my card. And I'm going to be adding a sentiment from Mama Elephant, and it's the Make-A-Wish stamp set. I'm using my embossing buddy to make sure that there is no static electricity on the front of my card, and also to make sure that all that ink is dry. I'm using the black Onyx ink because I want to do some clear embossing or heat embossing on the front of the card with some embossing powder. I'm going to keep restamping until I'm satisfied with the depth of the blackness of the sentiment. And because I'm stamping with the MISTI, I'm able to have perfect alignment. I'm going to be adding some Ranger Clear Superfine Detail Embossing Powder. And it's just going to coat the Onyx Black ink. I decided to go with the clear instead of my usual sparkle embossing powder because the rainbow colors on the background are really busy, and I just wanted to have the black pop out a little bit more, so I used clear. I just warmed up my heat gun and I'm just going to melt the embossing powder with my heat tool. And once I'm all done, I will take the large stitched rectangle from the Lawn Fawn die set, and I'm going to figure out where I want to center my rectangle, and then I'll just use my Big Shot to cut it out. And I'm just basically checking to make sure that the sentiment is in the middle. And I'm just going to use a little bit of Post-it tape to adhere it down so it doesn't shift as I go over to my Big Shot. Now that I've got that done, I'm just going to adhere it to the front of an A2 card base, and I'm just using my ATG gun. As I'm doing the voiceover, I just noticed that the sentiment on the inside of the card is on the wrong side, so I put my panel on backwards, so I'm sure no one else has ever done that. I also trimmed down any overhang that could be on the card. Now I'm going to be showing you just a little bit of how I did the pigment ink. I'm going to do the exact same process, but I'll be using the Avery Elle pigment inks. I'm starting with Rasperry, and then I'll use Mimosa, and I'm going to use Aquamarine and Sugar Plum. And with pigment inks, they don't get absorbed into the paper and they tend to just sit on the top. That's why they could still be vibrant. And with the pigment inks, just because the paper is so dark, I did have to restamp quite a bit to get the same bold color from the ink pad. And with the Sugar Plum, I did notice that it wasn't showing up at all on the dark cardstock. So what I had to do was to put down a layer of Aquamarine, then go back and add the Sugar Plum on top. And that did create the the purple. So here you see the colors there, and then you can start to see that it did mix a little bit. And so now I'm going to go back and do one more layer of the Aquamarine. I'll clean off my stamp, and then I'll go ahead and add the Sugar Plum again. And I keep doing this until I feel like I have enough color for it to be vibrant on the black. And if you stamp too many times, you'll notice that the stamp actually removes some of the pigment ink, and you just have to be careful as to know when to stop. And I'm also using a baby wipe instead of using my absorber cloth because the pigment stays onto the stamp, and I don't want to get my absorber cloth so mucky that I can't use it. So I clean it with a baby wipe first, and then I'll go back and I will clean it with the absorber, and then use a scrap piece of paper to just blot off any of the moisture left over from the baby wipe. Now I'm going back and adding the Sugar Plum, and you'll see that you can definitely see more of a violet color. It doesn't look like the Sugar Plum color, but you'll be able to see that it's at least a violet color because it's blending in with the Aquamarine. And so now I'm adding the Mimosa color, and with the Mimosa color, that actually does blend into the green and into the orange, and you just have to keep layering the color. I'm not going to show you the rest of the card because it's the same thing as the card that is on white cardstock, but you get the gist. The only thing that I did different on this card was that I did use a sparkle embossing powder, and I really wasn't happy with the way it looked, and that's why I did the other card with clear embossing. So technically I did this card first and then I went and did the white one, but I liked the way that the white one showed up better, so that's why I showed it to you first. Thanks so much for watching the video all the way to the end, and be sure to give it a thumbs up and head on over to the blog and be sure you subscribe. Have a great day.